This episode of Sovryn Tech is dedicated to Chris Pasquini. Chris, you were all the warmth in the world.
Power on.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. There is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment.
Earth, 2019. Dominant species, human. Galactic potential rating, 0. Cultural affiliation, combination of government and global businesses, corporatism, legacy institution. Species still conservative, superstitious, and religious. Ecologically illiterate, largely unaware of cosmological foundation of love. Level of technological dependence is disturbingly higher than the galactic standard. Species distracted and behavior controlled by technology companies. System error. Advanced concepts detected beyond normal human levels. New galactic potential rating, over 9,000. Transmission type, podcast. Host, the man of tomorrow, Brian Sovryn. Source, Sovryn Tech.
The man of tomorrow is in the hot seat. It is time for your Sovryn Tech. And boy, I'm not kidding. It is a hot seat for a couple reasons. Tell you a little story, actually. One reason is that as of this recording on Sunday, it is a balmy 80 some odd degrees outside on Ice Planet Zero here. Of course, that being New Hampshire. Woo, I mean, it is hot. But the other reason that this is a hot seat is actually, boy, I mean, I almost feel like I stole it. Of course, I've been working on a new studio setup here, still a work in progress. So ever since I had to move earlier in the year. But anyway, I was at Staples, okay? And I was just getting out of the gym, and I was at Staples, which is right nearby. And I'm looking around, just checking out the chairs. I'm like, yeah, I got a desk. I need to get a new chair. Need to get something, that's comfortable. Because, I mean, I'll record. However, with all the shows that are on Zomia 1 that I'm a part of, to say nothing of the others, and how much Sovryn Tech there is to do, I record so much. I mean, I got to be able to sit comfortably for, a few hours, at a stretch. Or if I'm working with other clients or whatever, I got to be comfortable. Now, I don't want to spend a ton of money on this whatsoever. I mean, a person can go pretty crazy with a, with a desk chair, right? I mean, you could end up spending, well, I mean, hell, if you really wanted to, you could spend thousands of dollars, but you could spend up to $1,000. You could, and most people will say, well, a good desk chair is around $300, right? And so I'm looking around at Staples, and I'm kind of realizing, holy shit, yeah, a good desk chair is around $300. Now, not that I could spend that, but I'm just looking around and I'm looking at like kind of the display. I mean, because that's the nice thing about a brick and mortar store, right? As compared to like going to Amazon, is that you can actually look around, touch and feel and have a seat. Like I like a bit of a taller headrest because I'm a big guy. And I end up, I keep looking, and then I sort of turn around towards the back. I think I was actually on my way to the bathroom. Okay. And because I'm shitting myself over the prices here. No, But I turn around and I look behind me, and there's these boxes, these huge boxes, say Lazy Boy on them. And it says discount, clearance. I'm like, okay. And I go and take a look. And there are 3 of them, as a matter of fact. These chairs, 300, they said they what, MSRP, whatever, I don't know, whatever the fuck you call it, retail price anyway, of $320. And the things are like 90% off. I spent $36 on this gorgeous, and I'm sitting in it right now. I mean, this is a very plush, beautiful leather chair. $36. I could take a picture of, or I have a picture, because I couldn't believe it. I took a picture of it because I just wanted to, prove to everybody. Like, no, you don't understand. I really got this for 30, because you wouldn't believe it if you looked at it. I got it for $36. I brought it up to the, to the counter to buy it. I mean, I was like practically running, to get it up there. In fact, I know I was on my way to the bathroom. I'm like, well, skip the bathroom. I got to make sure I get this before somebody takes it. And I get up to the, to the cashier, and the cashier looks at it, and he looks at the price, and he sees what's on his, on his computer screen, and he's just like, oh my God. He's like, sir, you are one lucky man, because even he couldn't believe it. And then he says, oh, do you want a like the, I don't know, the warranty plan on it and everything? It'll replace the wheels, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, what does that cost? He says, it's about $40. So I'm like, if it costs more than the chair, forget it. It's like, I want to walk out of here saying for $36, I got this gorgeous chair. And fuck, did I? Over $300 chair. And I said, and man, is this the lap of luxury or what? Woo! I mean, I can't even begin to tell you the stuff that's happened in this chair already, because I've had it for, a few weeks now. But anyway, I've yet to tell that story. But there it is. So the hot seat, as it were, maybe that's what I'll call it, the hot seat, because, I feel like I said, I feel like I stole it, so it feels like it's hot. It's warm, right now. And also, well, let's just call it, some very hot things have happened in this chair. And I mean, okay, let's... I'm terrible. Let us get into, but I'm not kidding. Let's get into the foreplay, which I'm not hinting at anything with that. Let's get into the foreplay, where we talk about all the little stories happening in tech news, which there's actually a lot of great stuff to get into. And before I get into that, are we going to talk about Facebook's Libra currency? You bet your goddamned ass we are. That's coming, and we'll be getting to that. But we also have a great lead story anyway, why spoil the surprise? So, all right, let's get into the foreplay. And we'll open this one up talking about, we recently were discussing, maybe it was even the episode 330 of Sovryn Tech, the latest episode, we were talking about how Firefox, how they are planning on, by the end of 2019, to have a premium version of Firefox come out. That being one that you actually pay for. Now, of course, we discussed that, and there's an irony in this, there's a coincidence here, but we discussed how Opera, which I had said, was like, look, this isn't new. This has been done before, and it was fairly successful at the time. I mean, but then, Internet Explorer became such a monstrosity, and Netscape Navigator ended up tanking. And so Opera kind of got left out in the cold, because there were these, free browser options, and people were like, well, why the fuck would I pay for a web browser? And it's remarkable in itself to consider that the most important piece of software that you use, or the most used, and I would argue, especially from a security standpoint and development standpoint, the most important. Even more so. It can't work without an operating system, but we've got operating systems that have to exist for free out, like Linux and so on, that are locked down, fairly tight. So, it is kind of shocking that there isn't a pay-for version, of web browsers right now. I'm sure there are some that you could pay for that are out there that are for like, in the enterprise space or something. But for the consumer, it is surprising. But that's why I said, it's like, look, this is naturally it's going to go this direction. And I think that there's really going to end up being a market for it. Now, of course, when we talked about it, I'd said, or Firefox has come out and said that any of the features that exist right now as they are will not be, they won't it's not prorating. They won't make it so that you have to pay for those to use them. If you can use it in Firefox now, you're going to be able to use it for free, because there's going to be a free version of Firefox as well going into the future. Okay, but that doesn't mean that any of these features might not have extended or expanded features in the premium version of Firefox. Now, I had said, that if Firefox really wants this subscription, and we don't know what the pricing is yet. We don't know if it's going to be a one-time fee. We don't know if it's a subscription model. I mean, we don't know how that's going to end up taking shape. But regardless, I said it's probably, my theory was that it will be a subscription model, where you pay a fee. And I said, the way for that to really work, or for it to be successful for Firefox, is if they're actually offering you an entire suite of services. Okay, like a bunch of software. Like they already had the deal. We talked about how they were working with Proton VPN, which is, of course, run by Proton Mail. And I'd said, if they end up like baking in a premium subscription to Proton Mail with your premium subscription to Firefox, this could become a very, very interesting and worthwhile thing to pay for. With Firefox Premium. Now, not but a week or so later after that story, I mean, it didn't exactly leak. It was based upon things said by members of Mozilla. But Mozilla released what they are calling basically, now it really is. It's exactly what I was saying, in the last episode of Sovryn Tech, where they are labeling and branding things as services based around the Firefox brand as services, as separate services. Like, and they have it here. I have a link in the show notes if you want to check it out. There's 5 of them in particular. Now there's Firefox itself, the web browser. Okay. But then there's Firefox Monitor, which is the service where you can just go there. You can put in your, your email address and see if there have been any data breaches based around, or where your email address was a part of those data breaches based upon sourcing from various lists of that sort of thing. So there's Firefox Monitor. That's one service. Okay. And will Firefox Monitor have a premium version of it where it's more automated for you, where it checks that, and that's part of the Firefox Premium service? That could be a possibility. And I think it'd be a great service to offer. Okay, where it automatically checks that. Now, I mean, there's ways to set that up already, but for, the average person to get their privacy in order, their digital life, get the privacy of it in order, it's a great idea. So Firefox Monitor, that's something that they're putting out there. And they all have like their own unique symbols now too. Even though one of them didn't really change the symbol, but we'll talk about that. So there's Firefox Monitor. Then there's Firefox Lockwise, which I think they rebranded that. Originally, I think it was like Lockbox, but Lockwise is basically Mozilla's version of LastPass. So Firefox Lockwise, again, will they add in features that LastPass has, like how you can share passwords without actually giving the password to whoever you're sharing it with, and make that part of Firefox Premium? Probably. Like, I think that would make sense. But now they're branding that as its own separate service, and it is a separate app that you can install on iOS and Android. Okay, so it does work separately. They're not bullshitting you. It's not like they're just renaming things within Firefox itself. Even though they are there, they can also be, they can operate separately. The other service they're talking about is Pocket. Now, Pocket has a pay-for version to it. That's another thing. Roll that into this Firefox Premium subscription, and you're offering more. That's the one where they did not change the logo for it to have like this. It's the Firefox colors, like the purple, the orange, the blue, or kind of the indigo and the orange and the blue, whatever. They didn't rebrand that, but I think they're terrified because Pocket is such a popular service, which Mozilla acquired and put into Firefox, which is kind of a contentious thing because Pocket wasn't entirely open source. But, that's such a popular thing for people that to rebrand it, they're probably scared to death that they would lose a bunch of people if suddenly the Pocket logo changed. So I kind of understand that. The other service that they're touting is Firefox Send, which this is something we talked about it when the beta initially came out. That was about a year ago, maybe over a year ago, which is a service that where you can just send files encrypted up to 2.5 gigabytes in size, which, why 2.5 gigabytes? I'm going to guess there's something within that might have to do with FAT32, but that's besides the point. Anyway, we talked about that when that came out of beta, which was just a few weeks ago. And could there be maybe an ability to send more files or larger files through Firefox Send? Maybe. I don't know that that's going to be true, but it's possible that they might offer some kind of premium service with that. But there is a rebranding, throughout all of the different services and software that Mozilla owns. And they are, they're trying to look like they're a services company, and I don't think, again, it's not a terrible move. And for Firefox Premium to become a thing, put all of these services into a Firefox Premium bundle, like I said, kind of like Office 365 or something. And I think you have a winner. And it's not like Firefox doesn't know how to, or Mozilla doesn't know how to do this, right? One of my favorite, actually to this day, one of my favorite web browsers is SeaMonkey, which SeaMonkey isn't exactly maintained by Mozilla, but SeaMonkey is just that. It is a web browser where it's an entire software suite, where it has, it has the email client built into it, right? It has news readers, it has all this different shit, built right into it. I've been a proponent of SeaMonkey for a very long time. So for Mozilla to go that direction, look, they've already like done this in the past. They have experience with doing this. Now they just have to give you the value prop. And I think they've got a winner here. And I think this rebranding, is a big part of them, trying to offer that. I really think that's going to end up being the reality around this. And honestly, like I said last time when we talked about the idea of Firefox Premium initially, I still think it's a winner, especially if they put in a Proton Mail subscription with that. You are good to go. And you have Firefox Sync, like that's another service in and of itself. I mean, there's a real opportunity here to become the privacy-based company, and they don't even have to come out with their own hardware, which, remember, Mozilla tried. They tried doing Firefox OS and all this, which is now, that's turned into KaiOS. They tried that. Now I think they have, just like Microsoft, is backing away from Windows, right? They're backing away from that, and they're banking hard on everything within, they're banking on their Office 365 subscriptions. Now Mozilla is doing the same thing. Microsoft is doing hand over fist as far as, profits go with Office 365. I think if Firefox does the same thing, they don't need to do hardware. They don't need to do an OS. Okay. Just have their browser that has these, and that has an account base on it, that offers all of these services with it, and sell it hardcore on privacy. And I really, really think they have a winner. So very, very interesting, but not surprising for me, development from Mozilla here with all of their Firefox services and this major rebrand. Now, speaking of privacy and honestly things based around Firefox, of course, the Tor browser, and it's not specifically just the Tor browser, but specifically Tails OS, which is my OS du jour. I know du jour means of the day, but you get my point. It's the one that I use as a daily driver very often. And the Tor browser just recently updated, actually they very recently updated to 3.14, but then it was two exploits actually, if I remember correctly. But there was 2 0 days that were used in conjunction for a spear phishing attack that was targeting Coinbase specifically, but with the Firefox browser. And Mozilla updated Firefox very quickly about this. That was the only browser affected, but that also meant, because the Tor browser is based upon Firefox, that also meant that it was affected. Now, there's probably going to be another. Of course, Tails OS is the Tor operating system that you run off of a flash drive. I've been recommending it for years on this show. Everybody should at least be somewhat familiar with it and have a flash drive at the ready running it, in my opinion. But regardless of that, you're going to want to update this pretty quick if you haven't yet. I mean, anytime a new version of Tails comes out, I instantly, put in I have a flash drive that I keep with me. It's on my keys. I keep it with me at all times. It runs Tails, and I will put that into a computer and I will get it updated very, very quickly. This is one of the ones you want to get updated very quickly because this allows for, arbitrary code execution, and it is designed around cryptocurrencies. And it's not unfair to say that a lot of people who are probably using Tails use it, and also use it for perhaps to, exchange cryptos, exchange cryptocurrency. I mean, Tails OS has Electrum built into it, for Bitcoin. So that makes sense. Anyway, it's kind of unique. So that exploit is kind of unique with Tails OS, because if you were a couple things, one is that there are different levels of security that you can set the Tor browser for. Like there is just the stock, then there's safer and safest. Now, if you are running safer or safest, that exploit's not going to affect it. And this is true whether you have the Tor browser installed or if it's if you're running Tails OS and running the Tor browser through that. The reason being is that safer and safest will actually cut off most JavaScript. In fact, actually, safest cuts off all JavaScript. So if you're running it that way, it doesn't really matter. Also, in Tails, you have where like the Tor browser itself is actually confined by AppArmor, which is basically like a sandbox where it doesn't get to the rest of the operating system. So it's in Tails, ironically, even more so than other Linux distributions. In Tails, this exploit didn't affect as much of the OS, or it wasn't, the OS wasn't as vulnerable. Tails wasn't as vulnerable as other versions of Linux, basically. Now, I could have talked more about that, about that whole exploit, but we have to talk about Libra during, This Week in Blockchain during that segment. So we're not going to end up getting to that here. Now, I believe there's going to be because when I updated Tails, there was still one exploit that they were still trying to fix, because again, this was 2 0 days. So they're still going to end up fixing the other. I don't think so. You're probably going to end up with version 3.14.2. Should you update to 0.1 right away still? Of course you should, for fuck's sake. Do it, okay? But that other fix will be coming soon. So something to keep in mind. As always, just be fucking careful out there. Now, in other news, a browser that actually wasn't affected at all by that exploit was, well, basically anything Chromium-based wasn't affected by it. I mean, it makes sense. Like, if you have a couple 0 days, if you have an exploit that you're going to, and it was targeted towards cryptocurrency exchanges especially, particularly Coinbase, okay, if you're going to do that, it's a good bet that people that are into cryptocurrencies are into what? Privacy, right? So would Firefox be the place to target? Because, you'd figure people that are into their privacy, that's the browser that they would use the most. Sure, absolutely. In fact, maybe they're even and I don't know, and I can't confirm this, but maybe they're even looking to perhaps get on some people who are using the Tor browser. Because again, the organization, okay, Tor that maintains the Tor browser, they are very much looking to get everybody to use the Tor browser. Okay, not just people that want to get on the Tor network, but basically everybody. They want everybody on board with it, which I support and agree with. So, maybe something was going on there. But anyway, regardless, Chromium-based browsers, okay, were not affected by this. And one of the ones that, I've been saying for a long time, get off of Chrome. In fact, that's becoming a very, very serious bit. I mean, once again, people are starting to raise this red flag saying, get the fuck off of Chrome, because this Chrome is basically spyware. There's actually a great story, I think it was at The Guardian, just a couple days ago, where they were talking about that, where the guy did the research and just looked at how many trackers Chrome was running, as to where Firefox now cuts, 90% of those trackers right out, if not all. I mean, it's really, really crazy. And, basically and they showed like a big one eye at the top of the story, with the Chrome symbol as the iris of the eye, right? And which I thought was brilliant. The idea of the Chrome symbol being a one eye, and then Google Drive being like this pyramid shape. And then I'm not going to go there, but you get my point. Anyway, so so getting away from Chrome for all of those reasons, including the fact that with Manifest v3, they are going to make, well, basically they're going to neuter most ad blockers, including uBlock Origin, which we love. Getting away from them is a completely valid thing. And look, if you're a Windows 10 user, for whatever reason that you're a Windows 10 user, if you want to rock, the Chromium-based version of Edge, fine, because again, that gets into what we talk about often, which is software and account minimalism. Okay, where if you're using, and look, I've tested out the Chromium-based version of Edge. It's great for what it is. I mean, I don't fucking trust Microsoft. No one should, but it's great for what it is. In fact, they've already ported it they ported it back to Windows 7. I think they have the Mac version. Did that come out in beta? But also, I know there were some developers who were saying, oh yeah, we're getting the word from Linux users. They want Edge on Linux. I would not be surprised to see that, become a thing. Of course, Edge is not completely open source, just like Chrome isn't either, Google's Chrome. Chromium is, but anyway, that's why you get a lot of web browsers based around that engine and that technology. But regardless, so if you want to use Edge, okay, that's one less piece of software that you end up installing, which every piece of software you install is another potential exploit, another potential gateway into your digital life by a bad actor. Okay, and if you don't have to make another account because you're just using your Microsoft account, which you're already using with Windows 10, hey, great. In that offers its own bit of security. Okay, is it perfect? No, but it's better than using Google Chrome, I would argue. Anyway, another very popular Chromium-based, and I think that Chromium-based Edge is going to be popular. Another very popular Chromium-based web browser, of course, and an alternative, even though it's by a Chinese software company now, to get away from Chrome is Opera. And Opera just came out with something, I think. So here's the beauty, right? Now, a Chromium-based version of Edge has a lot of interesting possibilities, a lot of interesting options, partly because it will be tyranny of the default, right? It's the browser that's already there. And because it can already do everything, or a lot of, 95% of, right? Because there's 5% of Google's Chrome that is not open source. Since it can do 95% of what Google Chrome can do, I think it's going to end up being very popular, and it's right there. Just like with, if you're into Apple's ecosystem, using Safari is a great and wonderful thing. Absolutely, if you're an Apple user, use Safari. I cannot imagine the argument for using Google Chrome if you have access to Safari. Fuck, when I say this all the time. When Safari was being developed, version 4 and 5, when it was being actively developed for Windows, I used it every day, all day. It's a great web browser, and it has a lot of usage because it is the default within the Apple ecosystem, and it's made by Apple, and it has a lot of great privacy features. It really does. And I think Edge is going to allow for a lot of that because of the sandbox nature of it, among other things, including the Chromium-based one. The features of Chromium-based Edge that's a whole other thing. Anyway, bottom line of what I'm getting at here is you have to have differentiators. Firefox is going all in on privacy. Opera has kind of been left. It's kind of been in a bit of a lurch, even though it, especially on the mobile version, like Opera Touch, it has done some really cool things like, built-in ad blocking, which isn't always the easiest thing to get on mobile platforms, as well as where they're blocking cryptocurrency miners. Great and wonderful thing, cryptocurrency miner JavaScript. I thought that was a nice move. It offers a free VPN. Granted, all of that data that's going through that VPN is going to its Chinese parent company. Keep that in mind. And it has that built-in ad blocker. Not to say that company can't also use that ad blocking data and sell it off to, ironically, advertisers. Regardless of that, okay, from a usability standpoint, it's great. From a usability standpoint, Opera is spot on, and it gives you a lot of the standards compatibility that the Chromium engine offers, or the Blink engine is what it's technically called. Anyway, Opera, even though it's put in a lot of these privacy features, it doesn't really get mentioned in or should I say security features, maybe not privacy because of who the parent company is. But these security features, it hasn't really been brought up in many conversations, at least not that I've heard, even though I have recommended it, if you need a Chrome alternative that is still standards-based, right? Now, I think they came up with something that I hadn't even really considered. And when I installed it, and right now it's in early access and it's only available for Windows, but when I installed it, I was like, no, they've got something here. like this is just interesting enough, and I'm not even going to get into Vivaldi. Anyway, what they've come out with is a web browser that they call it Opera GX. And the G just stands for gaming. And the X, well, that just sounds cool. It sounds like speed, right? So Opera GX is basically a gaming web browser. Now, does that mean that it browses like through games or something? No, it's just a version of Opera that is reskinned. It has a couple interesting features that I want to talk about that I think make it worthwhile for everyone, not just gamers. Okay, but it is reskinned to where it looks, I don't know, like a lot meaner, and it looks like something that you'd see in a gaming, UI, in a gaming GUI, in the user interface. It actually, honestly, it looks a lot like Tron, and you can really tailor a lot of how the browser looks, but it's got really sharp lines. Normally it comes in like a black and red, with like red highlights. You go to the link in the show notes to get a look at it. I can't really describe it here. But I went with the green, with the green and black, and so I think that color scheme looks so cool. And it really does look cool. I mean, just the look alone is awesome, but it has a lot more. So it has a tab at all times that's open that covers gaming news. Now, most of this, again, you can tailor this web browser any way you want. You can shut off so much of that, just make it go away. But the thing that I really liked about it, and I'll talk about a couple other features, but the main two features and the way that they're selling this to gamers is that when you're gaming, especially you're doing like 4K gaming or whatever, not that I engage in that, but you want, your web browser is always kind of running in the background, especially like Google Chrome always does. Firefox does that now too, depending upon which way you have it set up. What Opera GX allows for is there's a tab that you can hit where you can choose how much you can throttle how much computing resources the web browser uses. So basically there's a RAM limiter and there's a CPU limiter. And so you can scale it back to where Opera GX can only use, 1 gig of RAM out of, I don't know if you have 32 or however however much you have. If you have a system with like maybe only 4 gig of RAM, which we might talk about that in a second. If you have a system that only has 4 gig of RAM, you could scale it back to where it's only using maybe like 0.5 gig of RAM. And then you have all the rest of that RAM available for system resources. Now, I mean, if you're on a system with lower specs, you might want your web browser to use a lot of RAM. But if you don't, maybe the web browser isn't your primary concern with that particular computer, I think this is a great fucking option to where you can scale that back. And you can do the same thing with the CPU, where it can only use so many cores and so much hertz and everything. Brilliant move. I think that's a feature that honestly should be in every version of Opera. I get how they're selling it to gamers with that. Okay. But I think that's a big win for Opera, and a brilliant idea that I would not be surprised if other browsers end up implementing that kind of, that feature. Because to control that, I mean, one of the things that, Firefox has been touting, I mean, they tout this all the time that, we use less RAM even when you have as many tabs open as, say, Chrome does. This is something people may not realize they want, but I think once you kind of tell people about it, they're like, oh. And I think the Opera GX browser, again, it's a gaming browser and it looks good for that. And I think that there's a niche there to appease. And, good move by Opera for trying to find a subculture to go after, just like Firefox is going after privacy, even though I think that should be beyond a subculture. Privacy shouldn't be a subculture. It should be a standard. It should just be culture, right? Because I think privacy is an inherent part of the human condition. But good move on Opera's part. I'd save this for when I do another podcast on Zomia 1, which is the gaming grid. But I think this is something for everybody. It's not just for gamers to use. I think, if you have a computer with lower system specs, especially, I think this is an instant install. Because you can throttle it back, and is it going to kind of, run a little bit slower? Sure, but then also it's going to keep everything else, if you're trying to multitask on a lower spec computer, from bogging you down. So I again, total fucking winner here. I was beyond, in fact, I don't know why I didn't think of it. Like as soon as I read about it, I was like, I'm installing that right away. And again, I don't know how I didn't think of that, because it's such a brilliant, idea and feature to implement into a web browser, especially today when, web browsers are total resource hogs. They're so bad. I'd almost like a little more granularity with that. But anyway, it's there. The other nice, of course, you get all of the other Opera features, right? Where there's they have the baked in messaging apps, like you can bake in just on your sidebar. You can have a quick link basically, or where it comes out from the side where you can have Facebook Messenger there. You can have WhatsApp or Telegram. And that, boy, we could talk about Telegram. A lot of interesting new features with that. I don't think we're going to get into that in this episode. We'll have to get into that in another one. But I'm very impressed by this idea. I think that this could end up being a winner for Opera as well. And in fact, this speaks to, there's going to be browsers for different niches. And that's okay, because again, that keeps things from becoming a monoculture. I know everything being based on Chromium kind of turns stuff into a monoculture in its own way, but I like the direction that a lot of this is going, to where web browsers are going to start appealing to niches and not being this blanket thing that everybody uses the same fucking one. So I dig it. Anyway, speaking of 4 gig machines, this is a bit of exciting news in my opinion. And that is the organization that is Raspberry Pi has announced the Raspberry Pi 4. Woo! Which, what was the last one? The Raspberry Pi 3B Plus? Something like that. They got kind of weird with the 3 series, which that came out, that was about a year ago, a little over a year ago, maybe. I want to say that was 2018 when the 3B Plus ended up coming out. I'm a big fan of the Raspberry Pi computers. I've pretty much bought, I think I skipped the Raspberry Pi 2, but otherwise I've bought one in every series. But the Raspberry Pi 4, here's where things get really, really interesting. Now, I have successfully used a Raspberry Pi as a desktop computer over the years, as needed. I usually end up doing something different with it. Either I'll turn it into, sometimes I turn them into a gaming machine. Sometimes I turn them into a Plex server, whatever I end up getting very specific with the use cases, which is where they really shine. But now Raspberry Pi is saying, oh, no, here you go. This is going to be a desktop computer for, well, it's not just $35, but let's break into some of the specifics. Now, as far as when it's going to release, I think the first ones end up shipping actually later this week in the end of June. Then there's going to be more coming, a different series coming out in July and more coming out in August. The big thing to talk about here with the Raspberry Pi 4 is that you can get up to 4 gig of RAM. They are selling 3 different models. One that has 1 gig of RAM, one that has 2 gig of RAM, and one that has 4 gig of RAM. Now, this is a big deal because I had said for years that, look, I know you're trying to sell a $35 computer, but please, I would spend the extra $20 if you'd at least double the RAM, right? And that's exactly what they did. They've heard the feedback clearly, and now they have one that, you have an option for $55. Again, the 1 gig is $35, the 2 gig is $45, the 4 gig is $55. Obviously, still $55 for a computer is great. Get the fucking 4 gig model. But I think the 4 gig model is shipping later. I think it's shipping closer to August or somewhere in July. But wow, the other surprising thing, so there's a few different features here. Of course, the processor has been significantly upgraded. It's now the Broadcom BCM 2711, which is a 1.5 gigahertz quad core processor. There's something to be said because the Raspberry Pi processors were never affected by Spectre and Meltdown, unlike everything that Intel and AMD came out with. So there's something to be said for some security here, which I think is interesting. But understand, again, that 4 gig is really the big deal because we had been limited to 1 gig of RAM for so long, even with all the different models that have come out over the years. But they're saying that this is good. This baby, now with that RAM and with that processor, can now take on your lower end x86 systems. I mean, they really are selling this as a desktop computer. And I mean, the feature set looks right. You have the 4 USB ports are still there. 2 of them now are USB 3.0. Bluetooth has been upgraded to Bluetooth 5.0, which I'm amazed at how many new devices are coming out with Bluetooth 5.0, like just stock. But there it is. That's going to be a part of that. Another very interesting part of it is the headphone jack is back, which also allows for video outboard. It's 4-pull, but it's going to take a USB-C port for power. Not a terrible idea because USB-C is becoming so ubiquitous, so prevalent. I think that this is a winner. And look, if I have heard a lot of people cry, oh my God, oh, it's USB-C, oh, I got to cry. And there's another one you're going to cry about here too with the Raspberry Pi 4. Oh, I can't believe I have to use USB-C. I have all these micro USB adapters. Why do I have to USB-C? Look, spend $3 and get a fucking adapter. These things aren't expensive and they work great. I use them all over the place. You do not need to go out and buy a new power supply. Just buy a fucking adapter that converts the micro USB to USB-C. You'll barely know it's even there. Fuck people that cry about this shit. I can't even. What are you doing with your life? I mean, really. It can be annoying if you didn't know, if like you bought something and you expected it to come with an adapter that it doesn't. Like I can think of the Neo Geo Mini that came out last year. It had both USB-C and micro HDMI, not stock, not big HDMI. And I mean that like. They kind of told you, but you sort of expected that you'd get cables with it. If you're expecting cables to come with it, look, when you buy a Raspberry Pi flat out, $55, say the 4 gig model here, you're just getting the board. That's how they can sell it to you so cheap because they don't give you anything else. Okay. with other devices, if it has those kinds of ports, but then like they don't offer you the wires, I mean, like that, then okay, I can see complaining about it. But this is a case where you know what you're getting. Now, something you want to know that you're getting, though, is not only did they upgrade, quote unquote, upgrade to USB-C, but also, and this is the weirdest thing, the Raspberry Pi 4 has 2 display ports. And so that means 2, and they're 2 micro or mini HDMI ports. So you're going to have to get now, and these are cheap too. Just get mini HDMI adapters that go from full size HDMI to mini HDMI. But now you can power 2 monitors through this thing through the 2 ports. I was surprised by that. They said that there was based upon feedback. I really can't imagine who the hell wants. I mean, at the end of the day, look, it's still a Raspberry Pi. Who the fuck wants to hook up 2 fucking displays? That one kind of baffled me. But okay, I guess there's people out there that do it. But now with the other the chip that they upgraded to, and with the RAM, it can actually push 4K video. I was very, very surprised by that, but it can do it. So anyway, this is otherwise it's, has all the usual stuff you expect from a Raspberry Pi 4. There's a link in the show notes if you want to look at everything. You can start pre-ordering them already. They're even selling kits where Raspberry Pi themselves, they're selling kits where it has everything in it, including that, which we talked about when they were released a couple months ago, the official Raspberry Pi keyboard and mouse, like you can get those. A very nice looking kit. I think those run about $120, but they're not shipping until August. But this is a very nice computer, and am I going to try and get my hands on one? Oh, you fucking bet. And could it be a desktop replacement? Could get interesting. In fact, really, the big winner here is that with the 4 gig of RAM, I think I would hope that the community, the open source community, will end up basically porting more Linux distros to it, because like Ubuntu Mate hasn't been updated for the Raspberry Pi in a long time. But now it could run a far more serious, Linux distro. And I would like to see that happen. We'll end up seeing, but I mean, Raspbian works great. I'm a big fan. I have no problem using that at all. Or even like, I don't know, let's get serious with FreeBSD again, even though there have been pretty regular updates to FreeBSD for the Raspberry Pi. And oh man, speaking of, just got done saying all of that about Tails OS. Speaking of operating systems, just got done saying all that about Tails OS, how 3.14.1, which that, what's funny about that? And this just clicked. We're talking about the Raspberry Pi, PI, right? And then Tails is up to version 3.14.1. Wait, is it 3.14? Of course, we all know what that is. That's Pi. Ooh, the synergy, or the synchronicity, perhaps. But then isn't 1 the next number on that? I might be wrong. But anyway, so just as I'm recording this, I get a notification that comes across my screen. Fuck those goddamn notifications, but whatever. Comes across my screen. There it is. Tails 3.14.2, which messes with our Pi thing, but that's okay. 3.14.2 is out. That fixes that second part of the exploit, that second 0 day. So make sure you get that. So good for you. If you're just hearing this and you had not known to update Tails, do so now. Keep in mind, like I retweet just about everything from Tails OS. So if you want to follow me, of course, go to twitter.com/SovrynTech. But fuck, man, what a great, all this new hardware, all this new software, getting all these, nothing gives me a hard on quite like, I'm serious. I get a stiff one when I think about, security holes getting patched. And man, wonderful. But, I'll tell you, if you want to get a hard on, long-time listeners might remember this. I did this experiment and I talked about it on Sovryn Tech. Now look, listeners of Sovryn Tech, you know the score. I like the score. I love sex, baby, and I talk about it whenever I can, and I try to keep this show sexy. And you ever wonder about those intros? You remember the sexy intros? Woo, those might be making a comeback real soon. Anyway, a couple of years ago, you might remember, it might have been, I want to say about 2 years ago, I did something, I called it the HIDE Initiative. Now, not HIDE, it was HYDE, as in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I called it the HIDE Initiative, where I was taking quite a few different supplements, natural stuff. Okay. I was taking quite a bit of different supplements that I kind of researched and everything. And I wanted to see, I said, you know what? My sex drive is already through the roof, but can I take it any higher? Okay. Can I get any, not my libido going at full speed? Can I get it going hyper speed? Can I get, the action? Can I get that, as Power Wolf say it, resurrection by erection, baby? Can I get that resurrection? Can I make that happen? Can I get it hotter? Now, everything I tried out with the Hyde Initiative, let's just say it was a failed experiment. I didn't think like it took the Golden Stallion to, to the next level. But something that I felt that worked for me, that took me to the next level, that I tried recently, and I might get some, I might get a Sovereign Tech co-host on to perhaps talk about this. I tried Blue Chew. And I'll tell you, I was more hardened than a virtual machine, baby. It was, men and Z's with the parts. Okay, if you want to this isn't just about getting you ready for action. Maybe it's been a few years and I don't know, things have slowed down a bit. Blue Chew could help with that. But not only that, this is a chewable that can actually just give you that extra performance, even if you're already the kind of person like the Golden Stallion that is ready to go, baby, ready to rock that sack. I'm telling you, she and I, we noticed the extra boost. But again, so this isn't just for guys who maybe can't perform, but it's for any guy who wants that extra boost to enhance their performance in the bedroom. You want to jump on this. Okay. And look, are you wondering about it? Here it is. Blue Chew. They bring you, again, it's the first chewable with the same FDA approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis. So they work. Blue Chew is prescribed online, shipped straight to your door in very discreet packaging. So no in-person doctor's visits, no waiting in the pharmacy, and best of all, no more awkwardness. Made in the USA, and since Blue Chew prepares and ships direct, they're cheaper than a pharmacy. Now, if you want to get Blue Chew, I'm honored to have them as a sponsor for Sovereign Tech. If you want to get Blue Chew for Sovereign Tech listeners, okay, you can get just go to bluechew.com. You get your first shipment free when you use the special promo code TECH. TECH, just like Sovereign Tech. TECH, just you pay $5 for shipping. That's it. Again, that's bluechew.com. BLUE chew.com. Make sure you use that promo code TECH. When you do it, you'll get you'll get that first shipment free, just $5 for shipping, and you get to try it totally for free. How can you go wrong? Blue Chew, it's the better, cheaper, faster choice, and we thank them for sponsoring Sovereign Tech. Jump on it, bluechew.com. Now, while you're spreading all that seed, while you're spreading your genes around, the stories I can't wait to tell you. Let Blue Chew help you out, but maybe one place you don't want to spread your genes is with some of these commercial genetic tests companies. Of course, you can think of quite a few. We could go down the names of them, 23andMe being a very popular one. This is our story of the week, I have been very skeptical over the years of 23andMe and a lot of these types of services. I personally have never taken part of it. Of course, I know my family line. I have this ridiculous Jewish family tree, both sides, that, it goes all the way back to Jerusalem. It's insane. I have no curiosity as far as that goes. Like, who am I, related to blah, 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 blah. Like, I have the names. I have this massive PDF file. You don't want to know the size of it. Sorry, I was going to make a Blue Chew reference there, but anyway. But I have this massive PDF file. And, with all that. So I've never really had an interest in it. I know a lot of people are interested in it. And there was a time where you could kind of make a case because you could sort of do some at-home medical analysis, shall we say. And to some people still are interested in it for doing that sort of thing. But you used to be able to do quite a bit more. Then I know, the government ended up getting involved and they said, okay, 23andMe, you can't give this certain amount of info, blah, blah, blah. And then I think that argument started to subside, but people still do this. Maybe they want to know more of their family tree, more of their ancestry, all this. And I kind of get that. But let's be clear here that this is a bit of a two-edged sword. I want to read from Boing Boing, and this is written by Cory Doctorow himself. Big fan of Cory Doctorow, personally. And this is just from a couple weeks ago. And again, we're in June 2019. Here's the story. Cops are increasingly turning to commercial gene testing services to solve crimes using a process called genetic genealogy that uses the records of people who are near matches for DNA from crime scenes to zero in on suspects. That's how they caught the Golden State Killer. But cops don't just ask genetic services for data when they're after killers. Sometimes they deputize these services to help them solve petty crimes. Services like 23andMe and GEDmatch, I think that's what you call it, are amassing titanic databases of genomes from the public, and it only takes one person from your family to implicate everyone else they're related to in police dragnets. What's more, the commercial services reserve the right to act unilaterally in sharing their data, and this voluntary sharing, again, voluntary is in quotes, sharing is effectively unregulated. Even where services let you opt out of having your DNA used by cops, your relatives may not be so conscientious, making your decision irrelevant. So here's a bit of a quote from the New York Times, because the New York Times, Elizabeth Joe, she originally broke quite a bit of this story. So without legal limits, here it is, quote, without legal limits, genetic genealogy will become a more popular tool for the police. Rather than wait for the courts to deal with difficult and novel issues about genetic surveillance and privacy, state legislatures and attorneys general should step in and articulate guidelines on how far their law enforcement agencies should go. Congress and the FTC, the United States Primary Consumer Protection Agency, collects complaints about companies, business practices, and identity theft under the FTC Act and other laws. The agency brings actions under Section 5 of the FTC Act, which prohibits unfair and deceptive trade practices. Anyway, so most people, what they're calling for with this, here's the deal. This is breaking it down really, really simple, okay? You are effectively, for example, a company like 23andMe. And again, the closeness of 23andMe to Google, the fact that Sergey Brin, Google co-founder, and the CEO of 23andMe are married should bring you pause. And I've brought that up often over the years on Sovryn Tech, okay? Regardless of that attachment of all that digital life data, then all that physical genetic life data, that should be concerning. But here's the thing, is that there is not, as Cory Doctorow was mentioning, there's practically no regulation whatsoever around your genetic data that you voluntarily hand over to these companies. And that's where if you were giving it to a doctor, there are plenty of laws and regulations around that are designed, how well they do, that's another story, but designed to protect, your varying health data. Okay. But when it comes to commercial companies like 23andMe and GEDmatch, not so. Okay. And basically you think you are voluntarily handing over, your DNA, to these companies. Okay. And you don't think anything of it. You're like, oh, this is so much fun. I'm going to find out about how, I'm actually, part Ashkenazi, or I'm part this, or blah, blah, blah. Or, gee, who'd have thunk it? I'm related to Genghis Khan, which is actually a pretty good possibility. But regardless of that, okay, you think that it's all just fun, hunky-dory, and you're getting some interesting info and all this. Here's the rub. A, it's not just about you. B, these companies do not have to protect your data at all. They can willfully, willy-nilly, hand it over to whoever happens to request it. And it is becoming more and more commonplace for law enforcement to do so. And in fact, it's not like they're just doing, so they bring up the Golden State Killer. Of course, anytime this kind of, law enforcement is trying to defend its breach upon your privacy, and it is a breach, as in it is a bad thing, anytime that they do that, they always bring up the extreme case. Right? Because is the Golden State Killer was that a very serious and terrible situation? You bet your ass. Okay, so they talk about, because we did this, we were able to catch, the Golden State Killer. But now this isn't just about using that kind of collecting that data, requesting from 23andMe, please give us the genetic data, blah, 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 so we can track this. It's not just about mass murders anymore. Now police are using it increasingly for the smallest of crimes. They are getting access to this data. So that should be problem number one, right? Because you would think requesting somebody's fucking DNA, okay, would be, it's kind of like requesting, that's as identifying as a fingerprint. And most people, granted, I understand that today it seems like people are willing to hand over their fingerprint for anything. Fuck, they'll log it into their smartphones. Okay, but that used to be something that the only time you ever handed over your fingerprint is if you were a criminal. Say you were going to jail or you ended up going into the military, something like that. Now, why DNA wouldn't be taken just as seriously by everybody, particularly, say, in the United States, okay, where I thought people cared about privacy, why that wouldn't get taken just as seriously is mind-boggling to me, because I think you'd be totally within your rights if suddenly, you were just getting, pulled over, there was, some, whatever, they had a checkpoint perhaps for checking your inspection sticker on cars, right? Say the police have that. If they asked you for your, for your fingerprints, for something like that, would you just hand it over to them? No. And you'd be right in saying, no, get out of here. You don't need my fingerprints for any of this, and so, but you're willing to just hand over your DNA to these people? Well, here's what makes it worse. So, that's bad enough that you're already just like completely letting go of your privacy, including your most private of privacy, which is your DNA. Can you say, well, they could collect my DNA from anything that I touch? Yeah. Okay. Don't make it easy for them. Make them come and have to touch the plastic bottle that you grabbed or something like that. For fuck's sake, don't make it easy for these people. Because here's the thing, is that it is not just about you anymore. Now, law enforcement is requesting this genetic data from these companies to implicate people you just might be related to. Okay? To put it very simply again, your genetic data that you thought was so fun to hand over to 23andMe and GetMatch and whoever else can and will be used against, oh no, not you, can and will be used against your nephew, your father, your niece, your cousin, your second cousin, your whoever. And are you all right with that? I'll tell you something. I'm not all right with anybody potentially doing something that could, and I'm not worried about it, what have I done? But you get my point. I don't like the idea that people are just tossing data out there that could be used against me in a court of law. And again, it's being used for the pettiest of crimes now. This isn't just about, murders and all this other stuff. Okay, this is basically when, say, your uncle, okay, thinks it's so cute to get a genetic test. In a very real way, that's him. Say you live in Colorado or something, and say this is a few years ago. That is him standing outside your house. Okay, again, this is an analogy, but that is him standing outside your house, pointing at your house, saying, the weed is in here. When maybe 2 months later, all those years ago, weed suddenly became legal, but then you're going to end up doing jail time. That's the analogy that I'm giving you here to understand just what this can mean. Okay, because laws change, it depends on who the fuck's in office, and shit can get used against you out of nowhere retroactively, and it can be terrible news. That's why you want to err on the side of the government having less data about you, because the criminal today may not be a criminal tomorrow. And there's so many other places to go with this. You don't want your data out there. And there's a corollary with your digital life that we bring up all the time on Sovryn Tech, right? I tell you, use your ad blockers, okay? Use VPNs, all these different tools that you have at your disposal to encrypt and anonymize what you do online, okay? And also secure, most importantly, what you do online. And the more of us that do that, okay, the more secure we all are, because there's fewer of us getting exploits, security exploits used against us, whatever they end up being, or, data being collected in such a way that a bad actor could take advantage of it. That's a whole other thing, is that, that's not even to say government. What about just, private bad actors that could end up requesting some of this data? Again, there's no regulations around it, or at least practically none. But just like the better security practices we have with our devices, with computing, mobile computing, all of that, okay, the better we all are. Okay, the better off we all are. The same is true in the physical realm. Okay, the less data that we're just handing over about our physical selves, the more secure we all are in our persons. This is an incredibly important point. This is terrifying. And it boggles my mind when law enforcement, authorities of any stripe, when they talk about, we need this data to be able to stop this. We need, in fact, when it's something that hasn't even happened yet, we need this data to stop this, blah, 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 blah. They have more data than they've ever had in thousands of years. They've had more data than they've ever had in the past 20 years. And they're still crying about like when Firefox does something to encrypt their shit, or when, the New York Times comes out and says, hey, you might want to think twice about handing over your genetic data because who the hell knows who's going to end up with it and how it's going to end up used against you. And they want to cry about that? Fuck them. They have so many tools at their disposal. There's cameras everywhere. There's microphones everywhere. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, they can rock all that. For them to whine about this, it boggles the mind. So anyway, I want you to think twice. Okay, I want you to consider that while, okay, maybe you, and look, we all have our own tolerances, right? Maybe you don't care about your privacy. But consider that your privacy or your lack of care for privacy may end up affecting not just you in the future, but your relatives and who knows who else. Effectively, handing over your genetic data to these companies is ratting out the entire planet for who knows what, whatever the law of the day happens to be. Think about that. I'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Hey, if you have a project that needs reliable cryptocurrency data, check out blocktap.io. Blocktap.io is a universal cryptocurrency API. You can get historical prices for Bitcoin and other digital assets that you can use to build charts and do market analysis. Blockchain data is also indexed, so you can get transaction statistics, address balances, and more for Bitcoin and other networks. Blocktap.io is free for personal use, and you don't even need to create an account to access the API. To get started, try some of the example queries on the homepage at blocktap.io. Again, that's blocktap.io, blocktap.io, and we thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Woo, let's get back to the show.
This week in blockchain.
If you're worried about what the police might do with your genetic data, well, a great place to talk about that, and I think you'd be among some friends, would be with Free Talk Live. I want you to check this out. Sovryn Tech sponsor, freetalklive.com. Go to the website. This is a show. It's the number 27 talk show in the United States. Can you get much bigger than that? Go, and you can call right in. It's an open phone show, runs 7 nights a week, 3 hours a night. That blows my mind. I mean, I'm used to doing daily content here and there, but whoo, is that a lot? And they've been going for over a decade. freetalklive.com. I thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Check them out and call in and talk about whatever the hell you want to talk about. That's the name of the game on that show. Anyway, now with this show, we love to talk a little Bitcoin and blockchain. Not just once in a while, we do it all the time. And news that we kind of were getting hints of for a while, and actually I have predicted for quite some time that Facebook was going to implement cryptocurrency. At one point, I thought that they were going to actually, because they had, and I talked about this years ago, it's a bit of my own journalism here, but Circle, who used to be, or well, whatever the hell they are now, they were trying to be a competitor to Coinbase at one point. But Circle, who were dealing in cryptocurrency and all this, mainly Bitcoin, they were visiting the offices of Facebook by invitation. And so, the argument went, again, this was years and years ago. This is maybe 2014, something like that. They were, that led me to believe that, Facebook is looking into baking in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency of some kind. Now, earlier in the month, well, all right, first off, at F8, which was earlier this year, we knew, and even before then, we knew that that Facebook had started a blockchain division at Facebook. Now, we were getting hints of what was being called Global Coin at the time, earlier in the month of June 2019. Now, they have released, as of last week, they have released their white paper for what is actually called Libra. Now, understand, that's not Libre, which is a great and wonderful thing, because you think, Libra software, right? Libra is synonymous with open source. Don't so much think so with Libra. This is actually, again, it's Libra, not to be confused with Libra. But anyway, they've announced it. A white paper is out there. I've put a link to the white paper in the show notes. I have read the white paper. It's not the longest read in the world, and it's more of a statement of intent, more so than an actual like technological breakdown. I mean, there's some of that, but regardless, Facebook has really gotten in. Well, they're trying to make this. So this is going to be their cryptocurrency. Okay. In fact, I'll read right off the top of the white paper. Libra's mission is to enable a simple global currency and financial infrastructure that empowers billions of people. This document outlines our plans for a new, decentralized, collective laugh, everyone, decentralized blockchain, a low volatility cryptocurrency, and a smart contract platform that together aim to create a new opportunity for responsible financial services innovation. Okay, now, so in Facebook's own words, this is a blockchain. This is a decentralized blockchain, according to them, and it is a cryptocurrency, because you get a lot of commentators out there saying, oh, it's not really a cryptocurrency for this reason, blah, and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, if you want to toy around semantics, fine. I think the argument against decentralization should be, I think there's a genuine and valid semantic argument to have there, but some of the other stuff, whatever, it's just investors thinking they sound fucking intelligent. But something to understand, and at the onset here, okay, I'm going to read a little bit. There's quite a few links in the show notes because I want you to see all the different perspectives going on with this, because this is huge news. Is it the reason that Bitcoin has skyrocketed above 11,000 in pretty short order? Yeah, probably part of it. But regardless of that, okay, something to understand is that Facebook, we got to get this out right in front. They are trying to make this seem like it's not just a Facebook technology. Yeah, Facebook's kind of, leading the charge by putting it out there and developing it, but it is something that is being supported by a lot of other companies, a lot of other organizations. For example, Uber is involved here. PayPal is involved. Visa is involved. There's a slew of companies involved with this. Okay. And they have to put up a certain amount of money to run a node. You're not going to be able to just run a node. That's where kind of the first argument comes from, that, wait, is this really decentralized? If not, everybody can take advantage of this or become a part of this network exactly. Anyway, I'm going to read a bit from Cointelegraph here to give you a bit of the breakdown, okay, on Libra, and then we're going to talk about some other things. But before I do that, I want to read a tweet that I really think just drives the whole point home. And here we go. Now, remember, like I said, PayPal, Uber, Visa, they're all a part of this organization that is going to support Libra, okay? And this is from Sarah Jamie Lewis, a brilliant tweet. Says, can't wait for a cryptocurrency. She was responding to a CoinDesk story, which said, just in, Facebook has reportedly lined up Uber, PayPal, Visa, and others to invest $10 million each in the consortium governing its secretive crypto project, which we now know as Libra. Anyway, Sarah Jamie Lewis responded with, can't wait for a cryptocurrency with the ethics of Uber, the censorship resistance of PayPal, and the centralization of Visa, all tied together under the proven privacy of Facebook. I mean, I could slam dunk it just with that, really Sarah Jamie Lewis did the slam dunk, but I mean, we could just slam dunk the whole argument with that. I mean, that just goes to show how much horseshit this is. Okay. And before you say, well, but if it props up Bitcoin, that's a good thing. I don't know how great it is that Bitcoin's price is. I mean, Bitcoin has often been, over the years, has been the leader in a very real way, has been the leader. If Bitcoin's up, then a lot of the altcoins and other cryptocurrencies, they end up going up. Okay. We like the position. I like the position that Bitcoin is the leader. And I mean, Zcash kind of acts on its own, but that's another conversation. Okay. I like that Bitcoin's the leader in all this. Having Facebook suddenly be the decider and leader in Bitcoin's price, no, we shouldn't be too comfortable with that. And I don't think we should be too happy with that. Okay. I love Bitcoin. I mean, you don't understand how much I fucking love Bitcoin. You understand? I go to the gym. Okay. And I have my hashtag Bitcoin hat on backwards. I mean, I am representing Bitcoin every day, all day. I love it, but I am not happy. I mean, am I complaining about the price? Not exactly, but I'm also not happy, nor am I confident in that price based upon bullshit that Facebook does. That should not be. Okay. I mean, you could say maybe the price going up isn't because Facebook is showing confidence in blockchain technology, but because people are more interested in Bitcoin because they're terrified of what Facebook is going to do. But I don't think that that's really the situation. Anyway, regardless of that, let's talk about Libra, a little bit of the technicals here. Okay. So this is from Cointelegraph. What is Libra? Breaking down Facebook's new digital currency. Facebook has been in the news quite often over the past few years, and usually for all the wrong reasons. The social media giant has been lambasted over its privacy practices, its seemingly anti-consumer stance, and even an apparent investor revolt in which shareholders voted, albeit symbolically, to remove Mark Zuckerberg from the board of directors. However, the company's most recent announcement that it is launching a digital currency appears to be finally turning the tide for Facebook. The new coin, dubbed Libra, is a stable coin of sorts, though it functions much differently than currencies like Tether. Additionally, Facebook has built a blockchain to support Libra. Facebook intends for new cryptocurrency to be a replacement for paper money and even credit cards in many cases. The goal is to create a more efficient payment system that holders can use immediately and directly from their apps. This includes transferring money to friends or family, much like Venmo, but without many of the restrictions, paying merchants for services, and acting as a replacement for cash in the underbanked area. One of the company's biggest stated goals is for Libra to function as currency for migrant workers, unbanked populations in the developing world, and more. By creating a simple system that offers fungibility to cash, Libra can help people keep their funds safe and accessible even without banks. While it definitely seems promising, there are questions about how exactly how Libra will operate, as well as who will oversee its management. However, industry insiders and observers have hailed this as a positive development for a niche sector desperately in need of mainstream appeal. So I want to comment on this a little bit. Okay. I mean, basically they're saying Bitcoin is right, which great. Okay. I'm glad that that's effectively being said. You know, the idea that there needs to be independent money that can cross borders, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. I don't know that this is the right turn for Facebook at all. I think that's crazy. I mean, are they going to implement this to where nearly 3 billion users have instantaneous access to digital currency? Yeah, that's more or less going to happen, even though we already have politicians who are coming out and saying, whoa, you know, they're trying to put the brakes on this because they're kind of scared to death. Now, there is a political conversation to have around this and around Zuckerberg particularly. Honestly, I don't like calling it Libra. I'm going to tell you that straight. I would much rather, you know, we talked about this quite some time ago that, well, when I said that Facebook was going to end up doing its own cryptocurrency, I actually we ended up calling it Facefucks. You know, I was going to call it Facebucks, and then well, let's just call it Facefucks because that's really what it is at the end of the day. Yeah, I mean, you know, some people are calling them Zuckbucks. I don't know. I kind of like Facefucks. So if I end up calling it that instead of Libra, well, I'll keep running with it. But let's go on with the story a bit here. So what is Libra? In many ways, Libra is similar to other cryptocurrencies and especially stablecoins. Stablecoins, in a very basic sense, are just, it's a cryptocurrency that is kind of tethered based on another currency that holds its value better and it doesn't allow for crazy rises and falls. And that is very much going on with Libra. Let me read on. It is built on a native blockchain and backed by a reserve of several currencies meant to mitigate the impact of price volatility. On the other hand, the new digital currency is different enough from other coins to warrant a closer look, especially now that the team has released its testnet and accompanying white paper. According to the project's leadership, the idea for Libra is to operate more as digital cash than the traditional speculative function most cryptocurrencies serve. To this end, Libra is designed to be easier to transact with and to offer faster throughput along with quicker validation times. Despite the similarity to flat-peg stablecoins, Libra is an alternative that is fundamentally and technically different. Too different, some believe. Here's the next headline. Libra strays from the beaten path. First, Libra is a blockchain without the blocks or the chains. While the Libra blockchain is technically structured like many others, it functions quite differently, relying on validators with permission to access rather than nodes on the chain. The white paper itself states, quote, there is no concept of a block of transactions in the ledger history, end quote, with data assigned to validators sequentially by number instead of in groups. In short, instead of operating like a traditional distributed ledger in clusters of data, the Libra blockchain uses a single data structure that records all transactions and states over time. It is also worth noting that currently the validator network is made up of 27 companies, including major names like Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, eBay, Uber, and Vodafone, which have each pledged $10 million for Libra's development, and the foundation plans to have up to 100 validators in total. And validators are effectively nodes, but that's the price of admission. You got to hash out $10 million effectively to get, to be able to be a part of this Libra organization. Reading on, Libra is based on a new programming language called Move, which will eventually be used for smart contracts and therefore full applications on the Libra quote-unquote blockchain. This is a more complex procedure than the standard forking method most blockchains utilize, as it requires a ground-up approach. However, due to Libra's goals and technical complexity, working on a proprietary framework makes future development easier. Due to these unique twists in the traditional blockchain structure, some experts argue that Libra isn't quite a blockchain. According to Sila Money Chief Technology Officer Alexander Lipton, for instance, quote, Libra is not a blockchain in the traditional sense, since it is lacking most, if not all, necessary attributes. It has to be open, public, censorship resistant, immutable, neutral, etc., which Libra is not, based on the white paper, end quote. And I mean, that's big part of this. Number one is that effectively this is not an open blockchain. This is a closed blockchain. This is not like Bitcoin, where you might feel you actually have some say in the direction that Bitcoin goes. You have no say in the direction that Libra goes. Just like you've never had any say in what Facebook does, and you don't. Okay? So that's a very, very important thing, really to bring up here with this. But let me read on a little bit more. To make use of the storage and bandwidth, expect to pay Facebook or the Libra Association a fixed fee. The fee, along with the basket of assets being held in the Libra Reserve, is expected to be, which sounds like Federal Reserve, what a horrible name, anyway, is expected to be enough to cover Libra's operational expenses, as well as to pay out dividends to holders. While some have argued that this model is unfeasible, others believe that even just the interest on the reserve funds could be enough to keep investors receiving dividends and cover operational overhead. Others have noted that no matter how it is structured, Libra will still earn dividends. According to Alex Frankel, GM at the Kin ecosystem, quote, the white paper seems to indicate that Facebook won't get a cut through transactions, but that doesn't mean that they don't stand to substantially profit. Their focus on international remittances and similarities to modern banking structures show that the Libra Association could earn big dividends on the interest, end quote. Moreover, Libra promises some intriguing technical specifications. The blockchain will use a Byzantine fault tolerance consensus method, which helps expedite transactions due to lower verification thresholds and faster validation times. It also makes it much more resistant to bad faith actors. Anyway, we could keep going down with the technicals. And there's a lot to talk about. I'll put a link in the show notes. Okay. And there are other shows that I'm sure that are going to break all of this down very, very well. I think that there's a few things that I want to talk about that I think Sovryn Tech brings unique to the table that I want to discuss. Something that's very important to bring up. There are plenty of papers out there, by the way, like The Guardian has basically come out. I think one headline they had said this needs to be resisted at all costs. Like whatever we have to do to resist this Libra becoming a fucking thing, or FaceFucks becoming a thing, we got to put a stop to it. Of course, I agree with them. In fact, not uninterestingly, the Bank for International Settlements, BIS, which is really that's the institution that like all the world's kind of central banks come together in. They've come out and they've warned, saying, that I mean they're terrified of this. Now, of course they are, right? Because this is going to compete with the legacy banking system, even though it's ironically still kind of attached to that. They are very terrified of this. They feel like it's an unregulated currency, blah, blah, blah. They're scared. Now, one of the Winklevi, actually it was Cameron Winklevoss, I think, he came out on Twitter, and his prediction is that in 2 years, pretty much everybody's going to do this. Apple's going to do it. Amazon's going to do it, which not a surprise. Google's going to do it. Netflix is going to do it. Now, one of the funny things, there's a couple funny things here. First off, this is another Sovryn Tech prediction finally coming true, that yes, Facebook would be the company that would implement due to Messenger, and they have their own wallet app that they're coming out with as well, but that they were going to implement cryptocurrencies. There's number one. Number two is I remember getting laughed at that tech companies, and I was specific with Apple, that tech companies would effectively become financial institutions, that they would shift to that. I got laughed at. In fact, I can even remember the conferences that I got laughed at about that. Well, as I like to say whenever this shit happens, who's laughing now? Now everybody knows. Even the banks themselves are coming out and saying, oh shit, tech companies are becoming banks. Now, is this, is the enemy of my enemy my friend? Like, is it because they're, Facebook is seemingly taking a stand for the unbanked, the migrants, who want to carry their wealth around, and all this, because they're taking a stand against the legacy financial system or the legacy banking system? Does that mean that Facebook's doing a great and wonderful thing? Is this the future? Are we finally going to have freedom in our lifetimes or some kind of horse shit like that? No, because let me tell you why I think this is happening. Okay, now, basically, yeah, you're going to end up with Silicon Valley versus the legacy banking system, right? That's really what's going down here. There's no, it's going to be a title fight. Grab your popcorn. Here we go. But don't think that one is any better than the other. Basically, ultimately, this used to be a joke like in the 90s where you had two fighters going at it and they were both owned by Don King. And so everybody thought that the match was fixed. In fact, I forget, there was a movie, might have been Loaded Weapon or something like that. It was one of those comedies in the 90s where they actually cracked a joke. Oh, I think it was Hot Shots, actually, where they cracked a joke. It's like, no, who's going to win? Oh, it's anybody's, or it's going to be this guy because they're both owned by Don King. Or they said, who cares? They're both owned by Don King. And look, both Facebook and the legacy banking system, they're both owned by Don King. Not literally Don King, but metaphorical Don King. Okay, because they're both outcrops of authoritarianism. Let's be very, very clear on this. And I think that the whole reason that this is happening so fast and why this announcement happened so fast is because Zuckerberg was, and I still think that this was happening, okay? Here's a long, we'll call this a conspiracy theory, okay? And I don't mean this in the bad sense. Here's a long conspiracy theory we've had on Sovryn Tech. One is that for the past 3 or so years, yes, Mark Zuckerberg has been making moves. We've talked about them. There's whole episodes about it where I lay down the entire evidence. You can find whole articles about it, not by me, whole articles about it by, major papers and everything, talking about how it really seems like Mark Zuckerberg is running for political office. If not president, then senator or something like that. And he would have been, and there was the theory that, come 2020, he would have been just old enough to where he could have become president. He would have been 35. And now the past year or so, Facebook has been going through a trial by fire and losing that trial by what I think is really, whatever various aspects of the state, the deep state, the this state, the whatever state, fuck the state. Okay. Whatever. And they were basically, it was a giant smear campaign against Facebook because, you can't believe the NSA is mad about the fact that Facebook's collecting all that data or willing to share it. Of course they're not. So there's a total smear campaign to keep Zuckerberg, okay, from being able to be politically viable. So what does Mark Zuckerberg do? Well, Mark Zuckerberg said, I think he said, fuck you. And he comes up with Libra. And he's like, well, I'll skirt all of you, because the real power is in the money. And I will make a global currency that you're not going to stop. And that 3 billion people, a much larger population than any one country, are going to have instantaneous access to it. It's going to be easy for them to use. They're going to think it's private, blah, blah, blah. And they're all going to rock and roll. And I don't need to be president because I'm going to control all the money. So, because this isn't launching until like 2020. The same time that he was supposed to be president. That doesn't mean that come 2020, Mark Zuckerberg still isn't going to be potentially the most powerful person on the planet. Now, why does he want all that power? Well, that's why anyone wants power. I have, over other people. I think having personal power is a fine and dandy and wonderful thing. Empowering yourself is a great thing. Wanting power over other people, fuck, you got me, like I can dig some BDSM, baby, but like BDSM on the order of 7 billion people, I'm fucking lost. But he doesn't have to be, a politician. He doesn't have to have power if he's the man behind the curtain of the most used currency on the planet. Now, is Libra do I think it's actually going to take off? Great question to ask. Maybe. And here's the thing is that we've talked about, actually we were talking about F8 recently where what did he say? The future is private, right? Well, a cryptocurrency with a decentralized quote unquote blockchain, which technically it's neither, right? It's not even a distributed ledger. This is horrible. This is going to be so fucking secret. You're not going to have any idea what this money is doing, which again, I agree with people in that Cointelegraph article that defeats the entire purpose of blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Okay. But interestingly enough, this could really lead to because again, if Libra collects dividends, okay, if Zuckerberg, controls all the money, makes money off of this money, etc. Ironically, Facebook could actually deliver on the promise, their supposed promise of their apps being private, of WhatsApp being private, of, implementing the Signal protocol in Messenger and in direct messages on Instagram and all this. Because who needs to make money off of advertising when you're just, collecting on the interest for the money that you created? And that's a very interesting thing to bring up is that, for Facebook to make money, they could just make money off of Libra and, ride it all the way home. They don't have to collect all the ad revenue or sell off your data or all the other horseshit that they do. That doesn't mean that they're not going to do that, but they could make the popular argument that no, we are a privacy company because now we make all of our money off of, collecting interest dividends off of Libra. That's a very real possibility they could do that. And I think that the populace might just fucking fall for that. In fact, and there's an irony in saying it this way. All Zuck needs to do is have a come to Jesus moment, right? I'm an atheist, folks, relax. But he just has to have his come to Jesus moment. Get on TV, cry his fucking eyes out, and say, I am so sorry. I was a young man and I was very stupid for all the privacy infringements that I engaged upon the populace of the entire planet. And so I'm going to give you a money that frees you from, this ugly person, this ugly person, this ugly country. Are you afraid in Greece that your central bank is going to go to shit? Well, guess what? Zuckerberg's here to save you with some face fucks. I'm sorry, I mean Libra. And I think people will believe it. Because in general, people aren't the most intelligent things, especially when they're in a group. I really think they'll fall for this. And, it's funny. I can't wait. I am looking forward. In fact, I know I have some listeners. I have a lot of listeners, actually, who are religious. Okay? We respect each other, whatever. If you're Christian, now, and I've brought this up, in fact, years ago, Sovereign Tech sponsor Free Talk Live. I remember talking with people about this, and a guy from a church called in. It was interesting. But if you want to give me your feedback, if you want to email me, bbs@sovereigntech.com and tell me what you think about this, you let me know. So I had said years ago, again, I love Bitcoin. Hail Bitcoin, baby. I am on board. Okay. I had said that I'm amazed Christians were on board with Bitcoin because if there was ever the opportunity, you have to understand in the book of Revelations, again, folks, I'm an atheist, but I know my shit. Okay. I have a doctorate of divinity. And I was religious at one point. I'm no fool. The book of Revelation makes it very clear that the Antichrist, and the mark of the beast, all that stuff, the Antichrist isn't going to have a one world government. The Antichrist is going to have a one world economy. The book of Revelation, I don't care what version of it you read. It spells it out very clearly that it's all about buying and selling. Without the mark of the beast, you can't buy or sell. Okay. And I have heard some Christians who, kind of understand where I'm coming from here. And they say, oh yeah, the QR code is the mark of the beast, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Anyway, don't think I'm crazy. Okay. I think the book of Revelation is crazy, but that's besides the point. I'm just saying that this is an interesting thing to bring up. Nothing like Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general it's borderless. It was the first money. Okay, because gold isn't practical. It was the first, gold's great. I'm not saying gold isn't great. Gold is an excellent reserve. I'm not knocking gold at all. I'm just saying we know that you don't use gold to buy a coffee. Okay, yes, I'm sure there's some people do. For fuck's sake, don't email me if you use gold to buy a coffee. Great, good for you, man. Woo! As a Jew myself, I'm so proud of you. Nice. Okay? All right, moving on. You get my point. Where the fuck was I? Anyway, I said that Bitcoin is like, cryptocurrency was the thing that could actually bring this to life, right? And, and part of what said, well, no, Bitcoin's not the mark of the beast or anything like that, or part of that, because we don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, but then some people are like, well, Satoshi Nakamoto's Satan. It's even like, it might even be spelled out in Satoshi Nakamoto. Like, relax. With Zuckerberg, okay, now that he has a cryptocurrency, this global borderless currency that was originally going to be called Global Coin, somebody on the marketing team probably said, whoa, don't do that, because Christians might get weirded out about the whole word global. And that's why they went with Libra. Okay. This is Zuckerberg creating a global currency, and that basically, if you don't have the mark or perhaps app, you might not be able to buy and sell, because they're looking to get involved in all aspects of the economy with this. It's very clear in their white paper. And so many companies are jumping on board with this. It's insane. We've already went down some of the list of that. If I was a Christian, I'd be pretty fucking weirded out. I'd be like, wow, Zuckerberg's got everybody by the balls, and he is ready to, he has created, or he will create with Libra, he'll create the one world economy that, the Antichrist is supposed to bring in, and that you're going to need the mark of the beast to engage in. Yikes. Just saying, just putting that out there. I said that about Bitcoin, even though I didn't believe Bitcoin was, because I don't believe in that horseshit. Okay. Or I don't believe in that stuff, but I know there's people that do. You should be curious. You should be cautious if you're one of those believers. I am curious to see if Christians are going to come out about this, but regardless, this ultimately, why is Libra a bad idea? Because it is against the openness of what Bitcoin was brought to life. The openness, the ability to own your own shit. You can own Bitcoin, because if you have a copy of the node and all that, you're legit. You're the real deal. You got to be careful with that word legit, but you get my point. With Facebook, you don't know what's transacting. It's not open. It is controlled by Zuckerberg. It's not controlled by you. You don't have any say in it whatsoever, as to where one of the strengths of cryptocurrencies has been community involvement and all that. You're not going to get any involvement in this. You're fucked. And if you like being fucked by, these asshats, well then fine. Go ahead and you get yourself some face fucks and you have a good time. But this is a horrible, horrible idea. And and all the partners involved, none of them have a good track record of being pro-consumer. They just don't. There are problems with all of this. This should just scare the fuck out of you, that Facebook is getting into the currency game. And I'm more scared that I think what I said laid out is going to happen, where Zuckerberg is going to have, his come to Jesus moment. And even though I was just calling him the Antichrist, he's going to have his come to Jesus moment. And then he's going to unleash Libra on everybody. And people are going to think, oh, fuck, Zuckerberg's so great. Because how many times has that happened, right? Where, guys can do the worst possible shit ever, and then they get on the cover of People magazine and all is forgiven. Boy, I hope that doesn't happen. Again, you can read the white paper for yourself. I linked to it in the show notes. There's a few other stories there that are very interesting, I think, to read up on. There are plenty of people warning about this, that are very concerned about this. I am glad that most papers, or a lot of papers like The Guardian and others, are coming out and saying, resist this no matter what it takes. Don't jump on this. Don't use this. Folks, I've been telling you to delete your Facebook account. That includes your Messenger account. Get the fuck rid of this shit. Get out of it. Get away from it. Don't touch it. Don't use Libra. If somebody says, oh, well, do you accept Libra? Say, fuck you. Get out of my face, and maybe hand them, I don't know, something with a few Satoshis of Bitcoin on it and, send them on their way. I don't know, but just don't fall for this. Don't fall for the Zuck's big plan here. Don't get face fucked by face fucks. Libra. Sorry. Anyway, I'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. Woo! In 2014, he ran from Miami to San Francisco, raising awareness for Bitcoin and the homeless epidemic in America, and now he's doing it again. Blockchain evangelist and advocate for homeless rights Jason King is running across North America right now, from Miami to Santa Monica, right now. 5 years later, his commitment to promoting blockchain technology and fighting the homeless epidemic in America is stronger than ever. And you can help Jason now by going to blockchainacrossamerica.com. While you're there, donate to Satoshi Forest Sanctuary Incorporated to help the homeless, along with all kinds of other ways you can help. Get involved today. blockchainacrossamerica.com. That's blockchainacrossamerica.com.
The Climax.
You know, got a short climax here. And climax is where I can talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. What I want to actually talk about, I hate to end the show on any kind of sad note. But in the past week, and you heard the audio at the beginning of this episode, not the JFK stuff. You heard that this episode was dedicated to Chris Pasquini. Most Sovryn Tech listeners, I mean, I know there's thousands of you, so maybe not all of you know, but like particularly those that are members of the Zomi 1 Underground or had been members of Patreon when that was running and so on, you had to know Chris Pasquini. Why? Because Chris Pasquini was literally Sovryn Tech and Zomi 1's #1 fan. He was a super fan. He lived it, breathed it, loved it, contributed a lot. And he is a guy that is, I considered him an absolute friend, did a ton for me. Last week's Zomi 1 Underground Q&A, so he passed away. And the day after I found out, I recorded an entire episode in dedication to him. My TIE Fighter Renegades co-host, Robin Freebeard, he liberated that audio, because originally it was only for Zomi 1 Underground members, and put it out there for free for everyone to listen to on YouTube. I implore you to listen to that, to know about somebody who was absolutely instrumental in this show going round and round. You know, I've said it so many times over the years. I always say, you know, I'll open up a show and say, whoa, what's causing all this, baby? And you know what was causing all this? In a big part, it was Chris Pasquini making this show happen. And he is sadly, at the age of 31, he is gone now. I have two links in the climax. One is to that YouTube video where you can hear the entire episode that I recorded about him and dedicated to him. This episode is dedicated to him as well. The other link is to his obituary. If you, like me, knew Chris, or even if you didn't know him that well, but if you had, like me, beautiful memories of this beautiful person, I would be honored. I know Chris would be honored, and I think his family would be honored to hear you share memories of Chris on his obituary page. And you are able to do that. So that link is in the show notes as well. Okay. And I want you to take advantage of that. It is a very sad situation. Tragic, beyond tragic. You know, I say this all the time on Sovryn Tech. Any age is too young. People die in their 90s. That's too young. 31 is way too young. And he was literally the best of us. He was the #1 fan of Sovryn Tech, the #1 fan of Zomi 1. And I mean, he was tremendous and such a dear, dear friend. So I'm not going to go any further than that here. You can listen to my entire episode about Chris. Again, link is in the show notes for that. I am going to wrap that up here. I was going to have a conversation about Flash Gordon. I am going to save that for another week. So in fact, it's a conversation that Chris had some comments on, because it's what we agreed and shared so much together. But then there were points where Chris is like, nah, man, no, Stallion. It's the other way around. And I'll save that conversation for another episode. So I'm going to wrap this baby up. I implore you, please go listen to that episode. Get to know who Chris was, because he was an integral part of this show. And also, please, if you have memories of him, please leave them on that obituary page. I'm going to leave it at that. If you want access to that kind of content as it comes out, of course, become a member of the Zomi 1 Underground. You just go to Zomi1.com and you get your hookup right there. You can sign up. There's a bar that comes out on the left, and you can sign up there. And you get access to thousands of hours of content, much of which Chris was a part of. Chris was actually on Sovryn Tech almost a year ago to the day, and what an honor that was. So anyway, please check out all those links. And we'll wrap that up for this week. I will see all of you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.
Woo! Can you get enough of the Man of Tomorrow? I didn't think so. Well, now you're going to get even more, along with some of the hottest hosts and podcasts around, because now Sovryn Tech has become an entire network. Woo! Zomia One, the most rebellious podcast network in the galaxy, with bleeding edge shows covering science, technology, and even pop culture. Podcasts like Sovryn Trek, bringing you the latest and greatest in everything Star Trek. TIE Fighter Renegades, a Star Wars podcast, where the Man of Tomorrow and Robin Freebeard talk Star Wars like no other show out there. The Hard and Fast podcast, where metal is king and the latest album reviews and interviews with the greatest acts in hard rock and heavy metal happen. And you can even become a member of the Zomia One Underground and get access to thousands of hours of exclusive content and shows. And this isn't Patreon, baby. Oh no, this is all happening on the premier podcast platform, Podbean. So head over to Zomia1.com, that's ZOMIAONE.com, and become a part of the future with Zomia One, and become a member of the Zomia One Underground. And while you're at it, download the Podbean app on iOS and Android. Be the future. Zomia1.com.